Brady Cook is no longer just a great story. He's a Missouri legend. And let's celebrate Brady and this incredible victory coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And despite a huge homecoming win yesterday, well, my friends at FanDuel not giving the Tigers a lot of respect against Alabama right now. Now, speaking of which, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We start the show with today. What do you guys think? Maybe we should talk about Brady Cook. What do you think? There's an idea, because Brady Cook did something yesterday on the lucky 113th homecoming, by the way, that will be talked about for, I'd say, at least the next 113 Missouri homecomings. I'm dead serious. There should at least be a plaque outside the stadium. If Missouri really cares about homecoming as much as we say we did, well, what did we just witness? We basically witnessed Willis Reed coming out of the locker room in Madison Square Garden. We witnessed Michael Jordan's flu game. We saw Patrick Mahomes fight through an ankle injury during the playoffs and take the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. Well, obviously, the stakes are a lot lower, unless you're a Missouri fan, because, again, if homecoming is everything to this university, well, Brady Cook just showed us yesterday that Mizzou means more to him than anything on this planet. And really, today, a lot of times on a Sunday morning after a game, I dig my phone out of my pocket, upload all the video onto my computer and just dig into the analysis and the stats and all that good stuff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get there eventually. But right now, this is going to be a Brady Cook appreciation podcast. And truly, what I saw yesterday was so unprecedented and incredible. And I really believe that. It took me a long time to process it because, for example, last season after the Kansas State game, Harrison Mevis nails that 61-yard field goal, 62-yard field goal, whatever it was. I immediately go berserk as I see that thing has gone through and I realize Missouri has won the game. I'm running around the stadium, hugging strangers like a complete lunatic. Well, after this game yesterday, I was pretty subdued. Honestly, I could barely truly even process what I had just seen. Well, first of all, what was obvious was how could you not feel great for Brady Cook? Because, again, Brady is an incredible story. This kid who grew up in St. Louis as a Missouri fan, funny pictures of him, great, cute pictures of him as a young man playing cornhole out in the parking lot, tailgating before a Missouri game in a Blaine Gabbert jersey back in the day. That's the kind of fan of Missouri he was as a kid. And just imagine, being a lifelong fan of the Missouri Tigers and essentially having all of your dreams come true. Imagine being not just being on the team, you're the starting quarterback, for crying out loud. I mean, that's unimaginable to most people, and that is basically what it is. It's imaginary. It's a dream, but it's reality for Brady Cook. And of course, like Billie Eilish told us, right? You have a dream, you get everything you wanted. Well, it could be a nightmare. There's some truth to that, of course. Sometimes when you get everything you want, it isn't always exactly what you thought it would be. And imagine having your dream and yet having all of these haters that Brady Cook obviously has. The level of negativity that he's had to deal with, considering his career record as a starting quarterback, well, that's also fairly unprecedented in Missouri history as well. Maybe James Franklin has something to say about that as well. But I'll say this. At the same time, all those haters, all of them have to admit that when the chips were down, and when when Brady Cook was genuinely injured, when he was hospitalized essentially during the second quarter of that ball game, well, when Missouri absolutely needed a drive and needed a win, and you needed to go 90-plus yards, didn't just settle for the touchdown either. Didn't just settle for the field goal, I should say. Packed it in, punched it in for 6, too. Unbelievable. And I think really my only good take in the preseason, in the lead up to this game, is that anything is possible. I said I was ready for anything. Hey, I said it was probably going to be a shootout. Well, obviously that didn't happen. The Missouri offense was stuck in the mud for most of the game. But even I couldn't have dreamed up this scenario. So truly anything is possible. And one time, I remember last season before 2023, Luther Burden said about Brady Cook and his toughness and just his competitive fire in general. He said Brady Cook is a dog. And you know what? He was 100% right about his teammate yesterday. But again, even Luther Burden couldn't have known how prescient that statement was going to be yesterday. Cook said after the game, and obviously emotional and understandably emotional, Brady Cook, after an incredible victory there, said, "This is everything for me, everything for my family. The days are numbered as a Missouri Tiger, and we're really cherishing these moments." And I'll tell you, there's always just going to be something about a young man who is willing to put his personal health and safety on the line for his teammates, for his comrades, whatever it might be. And in a way, that is really the essence of football, beyond all the yards and stats and first downs and all that stuff. And by his actions yesterday, Brady Cook showed exactly what he's about yesterday and exactly what type of man he is, by the way. And if that type of thing doesn't galvanize a locker room, I'm really not sure what does. That's just incredible stuff. And you think those guys and his teammates, I know they loved Brady Cook before. You don't think they absolutely would run through a wall for that young man right now? I think we've had some questions maybe about the in-the-locker room leadership for Missouri right now. Hey, that's tough when you lose some great leaders like Cody Schrader and Ennis Rakestraw and Darius Robinson and all types of kids like that. It's tough. It's tough to replace that leadership in the locker room. Well, I'll say this, and especially in a world of the portal, you're getting more new faces than you ever have in every locker room across the country. Well, again, if this type of thing doesn't galvanize a locker room, I have absolutely no idea what will. And despite all of, obviously the hate that Brady has gotten from some Missouri fans, obviously he's gotten a tremendous amount of love too. And the moment where Brady Cook came back into the game and the eruption of applause that he got from Faurot Field had to have felt good. That had to have been a jolt to the heart for sure. And Cook said, to his credit, quote, "I always have faith in Mizzou fans. I know whether they're high on me or low on me. That comes with the territory of playing quarterback here, and I never take it personal. I really don't." Well, Eli Drinkwitz, on the other hand, he had a different way of looking at that. He said that's their guy. He said that's their guy about Brady Cook and his football team. They believe in him more than anybody else. They all do in this building. Nobody doubts that guy. And hopefully nobody else will. Hopefully we'll get over that bull crap. So obviously, Drinkwitz has heard the negativity that I've heard. And some of it, let's be fair. Cook has been maybe not as quite as good as he's been last season, for example. Certainly the numbers under pressure are something that I've highlighted recently, and Cook's got to be better there, for sure. But at the same time, to Eli Drinkwitz's point, is there a more Missouri Tiger type of guy than Brady Cook? Could there be an easier guy if you're a Missouri fan? If you love this university and this football program like I do, like I'm sure you do if you're listening to this podcast, how can you not love that kid? I think that's the biggest takeaway. Not only just because of the type of player that he is, but genuinely the type of man that he is as well. And to make this legendary moment happen, Cook did what he called a last-ditch effort in order to get on the field, and I have a feeling I know what he was referring to there, and also Luther Burden III narrowly avoiding the bad type of GOAT status in this ball game. So let's talk about all that coming up here in just a bit. But first, I want to tell you about Hims. And your sex life is important, guys, but your schedule is busy. I get it. You don't have time to go to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Well, through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper cost. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. For Auburn on defense in this game, it really felt like its goal was to take away Luther Burden from the passing game. And obviously it did an effective job of doing so, but also when Brady Cook left the game, well, the Missouri offense was completely dysfunctional with Drew Pine at quarterback for that time. So the Tigers down 7-3 with showing absolutely no offense whatsoever. I suppose it was somewhat understandable for Luther Burden to try to put the game in his hands. He's no doubt Missouri's best player, just in terms of a pure athlete, an explosive player, NFL prospect, and a guy who, by the way, helped us win the Vanderbilt game. It's not as though he's just all fluff or something like that. Burden is absolutely worth the hype. But in this moment, Burden forced it. There's no question about it. This is a moment where you either have to fair catch that ball or let it bounce, arguably, and perhaps try to let it go into the end zone. But what you can't do, there's 100%, you can't try to force a punt return when it's not there. And that's exactly what Burden did. And he felt the pressure around him, dropped the ball, muffed the punt. Yes, it was a huge muff, ladies and gentlemen, by Luther Burden. But fortunately, it ended up being just an asterisk, a footnote in the Brady Cook story here. Just an interesting note here. Because once that happened, in my notes for this game, I put "it's over" in big all capital letters. I figured that was probably going to be my YouTube thumbnail for this game at the time. And of course, by "it's over," I was referring to the playoff chase. Not necessarily the entire season, of course, but Missouri's big overarching goal, the college football playoff. If the Tigers would have lost that game yesterday, I suppose technically it wouldn't have been over, but realistically, it would have been over. But instead, we again got the defining game of Brady Cook's career. Then I'm writing that down in my notes. Homecoming, a comeback. He loves this so much. We did it. Boy, that was a lot more fun too. We did it was a lot more fun than "it's over" for a YouTube thumbnail. Maybe I'll go with that instead. We'll just have to see. But it really was incredible how bad Missouri looked offensively with Pine in the ball game. And I'm not trying to pile on Drew Pine here whatsoever, because he didn't get any reps in practice this week. I promise. That's just, when you're playing basically a game with as much importance as Missouri was playing this week, you give Brady Cook all of the first team reps. And by the way, I saw some people out there saying, hey, who are the other options, by the way, because Pine isn't getting it done right now. The reality is, with Sam Horn out for the season, Missouri has no other real options. The only other scholarship quarterback on the roster is Aiden Glover, the true freshman from Tennessee, who everybody says is more of a developmental prospect at this point. And if you think Pine didn't look ready to run the offense on Saturday, well, how do you think the true freshman is going to do? At least Pine has some experience. And by the way, it actually made me, Pine's struggles in that game, some people had said, oh, Pine reminds them of Chase Daniel just in terms of, well, they're not the tallest quarterbacks in the world. Honestly, Pine's struggles made me really appreciate Chase Daniel, who was in town for homecoming, by the way, made me appreciate him all the more because, frankly, it's hard to be a quarterback at that size. Bryce Young has figured that out at Carolina, by the way. As good as he was at Alabama, playing with that team, playing with a not-so-good team, it's really tough out there. It also made me appreciate the offense that Dave Christensen and Dave Yost designed for Chase Daniel, too, by the way. Getting him 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, spreading everything out for him. That was as effective as Daniel was ever going to be as a player because, quite honestly, when you saw him get under center in the NFL, that type of stuff, get away from that shotgun spread offense, you started to see those physical limitations come into play a little bit. But regardless, again, that just a thought there made me appreciate the great Chase Daniel even more as a Missouri Tiger, that's for sure, because at that size, it is just hard to play that quarterback position. And just one more thing on Drew Pine, and not so much Pine, but the small but vocal portion of the fan base who was calling for Drew Pine to get playing time over Brady Cook. Well, here's all I'll say. You guys were basing all of that on essentially nothing. Basically, some of you were literally basing it on the garbage time play by Pine at Missouri. Nothing based on his practicing, obviously. Not based on his play at Notre Dame or Arizona State or anything like that, but just based on him hitting some RPO slants against, a second-string defense in garbage time. Let's maybe have a little bit better analysis in the future of the quarterback position is all I would say to those particular people. Stop just assuming that the backup is going to be better when you really have no evidence that that's the case whatsoever. That's all I would caution people in the future there. But when it comes to Brady Cook and the last-ditch effort he made to get on the field, well, he went to the locker room initially, got his ankle retaped, went to the hospital, got whatever treatment there was there to be had, and obviously some x-rays, MRIs perhaps. But I think it's pretty obvious that the last-ditch effort that Brady Cook was referring to was a Toradol shot, some type of pain pill shot for sure. I'm going to just say it was a Toradol shot. I'd say that's a pretty good guess. If that's not what it is, okay. But I'll say this. Here's what I definitely know. Brady Cook injured, which is an ankle he's apparently has been bothering him for a while, he made reference to after the game. So to the people who thought Brady looked a little bit slower this season in the run game, maybe there's your explanation there. Brady appeared to tweak that ankle early in the ball game and then trying to push off on a third down play and scramble on it. He just crumbled to the ground. So obviously that ankle was in a bad way there early in the ball game. And then by the time Brady came back, well, he was running around on that thing pretty good, wasn't he? Including the fake the pitch play to Luther Burden. Brady runs it in to the end zone for a touchdown. Those type of plays, we haven't seen that recently. So the fact that Cook was able to do that he felt confident enough, the team felt confident enough in him to run that type of action. Impressive stuff there from Cook and a smart play call from Missouri. And again, thank you to Toradol. I'm going to say the underrated MVP of that ball game. And after the glow of this victory wears off here in a few hours, the Missouri Tigers are going to have to deal with the cold, hard-hearted reality that, well, The SEC doesn't stop, and the Tigers have a trip to Tuscaloosa, Alabama next week. And I got to say, I'm surprised by how much the Crimson Tide are favored in this game. But you know what? NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And speaking of the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs still 1.5-point underdogs in San Francisco today. I got to say, you got to know Patrick Mahomes has just been furious all week at being an underdog. So tread lightly if you like the Niners this week. Regardless of what you think, you got to think it at FanDuel.com. So the Tigers currently 13.5-point underdogs in Tuscaloosa next week to the Crimson Tide, who just lost to Tennessee yesterday. And I have to say, that number seems rather high to me. I thought maybe it would be more like Alabama by 8 or 9, something like that. I thought it would certainly be more than a touchdown. But for it to be creeping up to 2 touchdowns, I have to say that surprises me a little bit. Now, on one hand, you have to say, if Brady Cook's ankle was so bad, again, he had to probably take some type of pain shot to get back on the field. Well, how's that ankle going to be feeling in the middle of this week and this coming Saturday, of course, most importantly? How much is Brady Cook going to even be able to practice this week is certainly going to be a question. So that is something to monitor. Once you get past the glow of this beautiful homecoming victory, again, the harsh reality maybe of, oh no, we have another tough opponent coming once again. So obviously that's a concern for Missouri, but if you're Alabama, don't you have quite a few concerns at this point too? It's not as though you've been perfect if you're the Crimson Tide. This has not been Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide so far. They're a really good team, don't get me wrong, and they deserve certainly to be a touchdown plus favorite over Missouri right now. I'm not arguing that. But does Alabama deserve to be a 13.5-point favorite over a Missouri team that, for all the problems that Missouri had offensively this week until Brady Cook's heroics in the fourth quarter, well, that Missouri defense really did show up this week, I thought. That's something I talked about all week. What is the real Missouri defense here? Is it closer to the unit that has dominated its three lower conference opponents? Or is it the unit that was average to below average against its high major opponents, A&M, BC, and Vanderbilt? Well, fortunately, at least for this week, I think it was closer to the former than the latter against a good Auburn team, a good Auburn offense, if one that obviously is mistake-prone. That wasn't necessarily Auburn's problem today. I thought Missouri just did a really good job overall of not giving the Tigers a whole heck of a lot. Obviously, Hugh Freeze is a good offensive coach. He's going to design some plays. They're going to pop on occasion, but for the most part, other than, again, another explosive pass play over the top, I thought the Tigers did a great job defensively and looked, again, much closer to the unit that dominated inferior competition than the one that hasn't been quite up to snuff against the higher major competition. And just to be clear here, I'm not telling you to mash the Missouri plus 13.5 and mortgage the house or anything like that. I'm not even telling you to take it at this moment. I'm just saying I thought that was a surprisingly high line. And I will say this, the spot for Missouri and Alabama, yeah, you would think the Tide coming back home might be focused and ready to have a get-right type of game. That certainly is something to factor in. And Missouri coming off a really, really emotional high and win as well. But, hey, this is an important spot for Missouri, obviously. Everything is still in front of it. But with 2 losses, everything is still in front of Alabama as well. It's not as though they're out of the college football playoff race or anything like that, where, as in the past, in the 4-team, certainly in the BCS era, no doubt that they would be. And Missouri probably would have been too with that big loss to Texas A&M. But again, in the new 12-team playoff, Obviously, this game is incredibly important still for both teams with everything to play for still out in front of them. And thanks, as always, for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen. For your second listen, check out Chris Gordy's Locked On SEC podcast. Gordy never pulls the punches when covering anybody in the best conference in college football. So find Locked On SEC on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. So until next time, I'm John Miller, and thanks for listening to Locked On Mizzou.